Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to be doing a review on the Mount Vision pastels. Now, like a lot of you, I hadn't heard about these pastels, or I hadn't heard much about them until more recently. And if you saw one of my last videos, I recently posted an unboxing and first impressions on these pastels where I showed that I purchased the workshop set of 50 and I purchased a bunch of open stock pastels to go with that. So I've been working with them for quite some time, and as you guys know, if you've been watching me for any length of time, you know that I don't do first impression reviews. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I like to really spend my time with the product and put it through the paces. If it's a pastel, for example, I like to know how it works on a variety of surfaces, and I like to complete at least one artwork with it so that I really have a good idea. And that's exactly what I have done today, and I do feel ready to give my opinion. Real quick before we get started, I want to give you the rundown on what you can expect from this video. So we're going to be talking about the claims that the company makes. We're going to talk about availability, price, and some comparisons, and of course I'll give you some suggestions on how to buy these and what to buy. We're of course going to talk about the texture, the pigments, and the quality of these pastels. We're also going to do some swatching later on. We'll get into a pros and cons list, and finally we're going to give a wrap up with some of my final thoughts on these pastels, and I'll let you know what I think of them. Also, before we get started, if you haven't already and you'd like to, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up because it really helps out my channel. So the first thing that I wanted to mention about these pastels is I want to go ahead and read to you some of the information that's available on the Dick Blick website, which is where I purchased mine from. You can also purchase straight from the manufacturer. Mount Vision does have a website of their own, but if you purchase them through Dick Blick, you are going to get a little bit of a discount. It's a little bit more affordable that way, and it's just the way that I like to buy. So the information they give you, they say the feel of a pastel, or how a pastel releases to paper, depends on the individual pigments used and the base they're mixed with. Carl Kelly, owner of Mount Vision Pastel Company, understands that. By combining his technical expertise and artistic background, Kelly has translated the vivid color and unique density of individual pigments into high-quality, affordable pastels for the artist who sees beyond the expected when it comes to color. Each hand-rolled stick contains a unique combination of traditional and synthetic pigments, combined to bring out their inherent beauty, enrich their undertone, and make each color sing, both individually and together. Combined in varying degrees with marble dust, chalk, and clay to assure a consistently smooth and buttery feel. Colors lay down with minimal resistance, allowing several layers without becoming too thick. And they give you the measurement of each stick, which is about 2.5 inches long by 1/2 inch in diameter. So basically, what does that amount to, what was said there? Well, basically, the biggest selling points for these pastels for me is that, number one, they are handmade. They're 100% handmade from start to finish, and the Mount Vision Pastel Company has a website where you can get a glimpse into that process, as well as a Facebook page and an Instagram page where you can get an idea. You can really watch the man make the pastels. You can see him mix everything in a big mixing bowl. He uses a sausage extruder to actually squirt the pastels out or extrude them out onto big slabs, and he hand rolls them. So every part of this process is handmade, and to me that was one of the biggest selling points. Now, the pigments that I see being used on these pastels, all that pigment information is 100% available on the website, which, if you're a big pastel customer and fan like I am, you'll know that not every company does that, and that's really a shame. I'd like to see that more in the future. So there's no mystery purples, there's no dyes being used. If you go over to the website, you'll see that a lot of the pigments he uses are tried and true pigments, like quinacridones, for example, phthalos, ultramarines, chromium oxide green. So a lot of tried and true pigments that artists truly trust. When you first get your pastels home, you'll notice that they arrive in plain corrugated cardboard packaging. So they're not one for really fancy packaging like a fancy wood box. You are going to have to get that for yourself. But what you do get is really good pastels. The labels are a little bit simplistic. That's something that I noted in my first impressions. You get the name, the Mount Vision Pastel Company, and there's a color number and a barcode, and that's it. In the future, I would really like to see him improve on this. This is one of the things on my con list. I would like to see color names on the label, but even more so, I'd like to see the pigment information and the light fast information printed on each label, if that would be possible. You do see that on brands like Rembrandt, and even Schmincke does that, so I would love to see that in the future. So for the price on these pastels, these range in price a little bit. The list price is right around $5.99 a stick. Right now, Dick Blick has them for $4.99 a stick open stock. But when I purchased mine, they were $3.99 a stick. So they're an incredible value no matter how you look at it. And the workshop set of 50 is the one that I want to zero in on here today. Now, even though I purchased approximately 82 of their lovely pastels, if you could only get anything from the company, I really want to zero in and focus in on the workshop set of 50 for today's review, because even though it's a review comprehensive of the whole brand, of the whole line, I really want to talk a little bit more in depth about this workshop set of 50 specifically, because I think that it's a really well balanced set. I think that if you were starting a course in pastel, or you wanted to take lessons, or even if you just wanted to try a good sampling of what the brand had to offer and know that you had something, a set from them that you could do a variety of things with, and it felt very cohesive and very whole. This is a very well put together set, and it's beautiful, and the colors really inspire me, so I really want to zero in on it for today's review. But again, it's a review of all the pastels in general. Okay, so I wanted to zoom you guys down in here so that I could give you a comparison to a couple other brands. And what I'm comparing here is not just the texture and the vibrancy, but also the size. The first thing that you're likely to notice here is that the Mount Vision Pastel is the largest one. This concerned me and was a reason that I held back a little bit from investing in these, was because as a realism artist, I was concerned, well, was I going to be able to get realism and details with these pastels because of how large they are. And I did find that as I worked through the piece, the Pear Still Life, that in most instances I had to be a little bit more careful, but it really was more about the skill of the hand. They were not so chunky and so soft that I wasn't able to control them. I was still able to get some relatively fine lines by working in on an edge or a very sharp broken piece. Because they break so clean and even, I was able to get relatively fine lines. Now, I won't say that they're going to give you the sharpest, cleanest fine lines. They're not going to give you anywhere near as sharp of a line as a new pastel or even the Rembrandt. Okay, they're too soft to give you the same type of fine line that a Rembrandt can. But I was still able to get detail, so it wasn't that as much of an issue as I thought. But the size was not an issue for me. Even though they're a little chunky, I think it really is more about the skill of the hand. So I've got 5 pastels here. I've got the Mount Vision, obviously. I've got the Prismacolor New Pastel, the Rembrandt, the Blick Artist Pastels, which I think are not given enough love. They really are very good pastels. And I've got the Schmincke up at the top. I think that the Schmincke is the softest of all the ones that I have here, and the New Pastel is obviously going to be the hardest, but I wanted to give you a reference for the texture that we're talking about. So I'm going to swatch all of them, and I'm going to see what kind of a line I can get. This is just a cheap piece of Canson Mitance paper, because good paper is expensive and I didn't want to waste it for this. But I've used good paper for these pastels, so I do know how they react on that paper. I do think they like sanded paper in general, but most pastels I think do benefit from some sanded paper. So now, each one of the Mount Vision pastels I notice are a little bit different. Some of them are a little bit butterier, and some of them are a little bit harder and a little more dry. And that just depends on the pigment that's used. But you can see the kind of coverage that we're talking about. And I'm going to try and get some lines over here. So, you know, it really kind of depends on what piece you break off, but not bad, not bad. Okay, so I really do enjoy them. The texture is a little bit more dry, okay? There, I mentioned that in my unboxing video. It feels kind of like drywall, actually. If you've ever experienced that, like liquid drywall, it's kind of got that almost drier feel a little bit to it, and that's just the marble dust in there. But they vary a little bit from harder to softer depending on which pigment is used, and that's normal. When you buy pastels that use dyes or synthetic colorants, then they're going to be usually more soft consistently all the way through. This is the new pastel, and it's the hardest. You can see just the difference there, right? So, and you can hear that, I'm sure, too. So not nearly the coverage and the vibrancy of the Mount Vision, but on the flip side, you can get very fine lines with that. I don't use my Prismacolor new pastels for my fine artwork either. Here are the Rembrandts, and I do really like Rembrandt. Okay, so that's the coverage we're talking about there, and that's pretty good. I think it's pretty good, but still not the coverage of the Mount Vision and not quite the vibrancy. And here are some of the lines that you can get. And I did want to take a second to compare the diameter. I did this in the unboxing video, but in case you missed that video, see how much larger these are? They are quite a bit larger, very generously sized. I made my intention was to make a half stick set, but really it ended up being more like a third stick set here off to the side, because you break off a third of it and you have more than enough. They're so generously sized. So if you have several pastel boxes, you can see just how much color is releasing. I mean, it's the only one here that's made kind of a mess. And that's because so much color comes off. They're beautiful. They really are. So if you like to have multiple pastel boxes, and maybe you want to put a chunk of this in your plein air box and then maybe a chunk in your studio box and still keep a third of it with the label in the box that it came in, you could do that absolutely with these. They're so generously sized. Here are the Blick Artist pastels, and I'll do a size comparison there also. Okay. These are very lovely pastels. They're very affordable also, and you can get a 120 half stick set for around $100. They are really nice, and they have good coverage as well. Here are some of the lines I can get there. I find them to be somewhat comparable to the Mount Vision in terms of how much product releases. But you take a step down in pigmentation. They're not as pigmented as the Mount Vision, but they're very, very good, very buttery and very soft. And then I also have here the Schminke, which this is the bit that I've been using, and these crumble a little bit also. I don't want to use my dirty hand for this because I don't want to dirty my white. I love the Schminke white. It's got the best coverage, and it always gets me a beautiful, beautiful sparkling highlight. So you can't get fine lines with these. These are more for impasto strokes and more impressionistic styles. Okay, so there's a size comparison there. I don't have a Sennelier to compare today because I stopped using them. I really don't like Sennelier, to be honest, because most of their pinks, purples, oranges, and even some of their yellows are not light fast. They use vat dyes. But the Mount Vision pastels, there's no mystery pigments, and they're all genuine pigments. So, you know, the purple is light fast, the pinks, all of them are light fast and good quality, so there's a huge benefit there. But you can see just how much more of a mess this made than any of the others. And I think that's because it's so soft. I would categorize the softness of it to be somewhere between I compare it most to the Sennelier half sticks, not the whole sticks. The whole sticks are a completely different formula, okay? Whatever they're doing, those half sticks is an improvement because they hold better and they don't crumble quite as much. They're not quite as soft as the whole sticks, but you can't buy the half sticks individually, obviously. They're softer than the Rembrandts, much softer than the Rembrandts, but not quite as soft as the Schmincke's. But they break very clean and they don't crumble. So they're excellent, and they have a slightly drier texture than any of the ones I mentioned. So like I said, I wanted to kind of zero in on the workshop set of 50, and there's a very good reason I want to talk about this set. First of all, because it's the set that I kind of started with and I picked out for myself because I thought that it was the most versatile, and it's very well balanced. If you really want to try these pastels and you could only get one set from them, I'd really steer you toward the workshop set. The workshop set retails, the list price is $297, but of course we never pay that. The Blick price is $185.35 at the moment. I know that's not cheap, but compared to a lot of handmade pastels, that is a super affordable price for the quality of pastels that you're getting. The workshop set has been hand put together by artists who give classes, and they know that oftentimes students come in and they have either too many pastels, too many colors, and they spend too long digging for the right color, or they never have the colors that they need. So the artists who put this set together wanted it to make it the most versatile, the most beginner friendly, and the most user friendly possible, and I really do think they achieved that. It's weighted more toward the darks and the mid-tones because it's easier to make a color lighter than it is to make it darker. So it's really well balanced. You're going to get all your basics. You're going to get a cool and a warm version of each primary, as well as a very good selection of greens and some earths and a good range of grays. Do I think that it's the only pastels that you'll ever need? No, you'll likely, if you're a beginner, it's a great way to get you started. A very good place to start. And if you were going to take a workshop set from any artist and you were going to take classes or go to take, a drawing lesson or whatever, I think that this would be a great set to take along with you. So I really, really do recommend it. It's a good selection of yellows, reds, greens, blues. I mean, everything that you would need for the most part is in there to get you started. Additionally, it's set up so that there are 3 add-on sets or supplemental sets of 25 that you could add on at a later date if you wanted to. So they have the supplemental set of 25. That's going to be around $96. After that, if you wanted to add the plein air set of 25, you could for an additional $97. Or if you're into figure drawing or portrait drawing, you could add the additional set of that. And then it wouldn't be any duplicates. So it's set up that way so that you can get the workshop set of 50 and then add on 3 additional sets at your own leisure of 25 without any duplicates, and I think that's a great way to set it up. Of course, if you know that you're a plein air artist already, or a landscape artist, or a portrait artist, they have sets that are tailored toward those needs as well as a variety of specialty sets, like they have the Thunderstorm Grays collection and the Tropical collection. So if you're a seasoned artist and you were just looking for a set that would inspire you and really inspire creativity and spark that feeling back up again, they've got you covered with that also. They also have a chromatic set, which he describes as a rainbow in a box or a color wheel in a box, and it's pretty amazing also. So if you just wanted the basics, he's got you covered there too. I did recently purchase the Thunderstorm Grays collection. For my birthday, I got some gift cards. Everybody knows in my family, all my friends know, give me gift cards to the art store. So I'm very, very lucky and very, very blessed to have more of these pastels coming because I love them that much that I knew I wanted more colors. So I recently purchased the Thunderstorm Grays collection, the 25 set, and about another 100 open stock additionally. So I'll film an update video on my collection, and I'm also going to do an entire video dedicated to that Thunderstorm Grays set if you guys are interested, because I think it deserves its own video. So subscribe so you don't miss that if you're interested. So lastly, I thought we'd get into the pros and cons list. And while I'm doing that, I thought that I'd go ahead and swatch out some of these pastels. So let's talk about the pros. First, I think that they're a good value and a very generous size. Like I said, you're getting a lot more than a lot of pastel brands, and I think that's a huge advantage. It means that they're going to be around in your collection for a really long time. You're going to get a lot of use out of them, and you're getting a good bang for your buck. They're really vibrant colors, and I mean really vibrant, punchy colors with good coverage. As you can see, this is a piece of paper that I made myself. I just threw a little bit of sand onto it, a little bit of pumice, and you can see this paper is a huge step up already from the Mi-Teintes from earlier. They're handmade is another one of my pros. And to get a handmade pastel for this price, I think is a really, really unique thing. And maybe it's because they're a slightly newer company. I love seeing the fingerprints in the pastels. And it really kind of inspires me as an artist that each one seems to be almost like a little fine art sculpture on its own. I love that. They're all quality pigments is another one of my pros. So there's no mystery purples or, you know, take a guess at what that pink could be. You know exactly what it is because he's being very transparent on his website. And his website offers a glimpse into the making of them, you know, the process and how they're made, as well as full pigment information, which, you know, I'd like to see printed on the labels at some point. They're a good texture is another one of my pros, a very good texture. So much so that I felt like I could get many, many layers without clogging the tooth, as long as I was using the appropriate paper. I think that's important to understand. And as long as I was using fixative. I think that with the help of fixative, you're able to achieve more layers, absolutely. Look at my fingertips. I mean, they are just covered in pigment. I need a baby wipe. Hold on one second. My next pro, I wanted to mention the texture. They are a good texture that allows for several layers without clogging the tooth. They're not so soft that you're going to clog the tooth on that first layer, but they're not so hard either that you're not getting the vibrancy. So they're a good workhorse pastel. And I really do appreciate that texture. As long as I was using the appropriate paper and I was using a fixative, which of course always helps get more layers and a better result, then I was able to continue to layer just fine. And I really, really appreciated that. I also think that it's possible that because they're a little drier and a little bit more gritty, they seem to grab the next layer a little bit better. It seems like it just applies better. I don't know, but I really did enjoy that, the texture of these pastels. Which leads me into my next pro. Because they're not too hard, not too soft, they're really just lovely. They're on the softer end of medium soft. They lend themselves to both a more looser impressionistic style. When I say that, a more painterly style, I'm thinking like impressionist painters. I'm thinking Susan Jenkins in my mind from Monet Cafe, or Gail Sibley. I think that they would both really love these pastels, but at the same time, an artist working in realism like myself would also enjoy them. So they seem to just kind of be that nice sweet spot in the middle that kind of pleases both sides. And my last pro, but certainly not least, because this one's very, very important to me, is they do not contain any toxic heavy metal pigments. So he's not using cadmiums, cobalts, leads, manganese. That was a very important selling point for me, and I had to be sure of that before I'd invest in his pastels. And as it turns out, nope, he doesn't use any of that. Now, that doesn't mean that the pastels are non-toxic, because there certainly aren't. He does use chromium oxide green, which is slightly toxic, and genuine umbers. Now, umbers on their own are not toxic or harmful, but they can contain manganese, which is. So, obviously, I wouldn't recommend these pastels for children or anybody who hasn't developed good studio habits yet, but they're not a high risk item either. They're not going to be like something you're going to need a mask and a ventilator, air filtration systems and gloves for. As long as you're reasonably responsible, then they're relatively safe, I think, in my opinion. So that's it for the pros list. Now, I have a very short list of cons. Even though I really love these pastels, no pastel is perfect, and I have to be totally honest. So my first con is that they might be a challenge for some artists to control because of their large, chunkier size. If you're an artist who's a beginner, or if you are really used to things like pastel pencils, or maybe Rembrandt is the softest pastel that you use, then these might be a little bit difficult for you to control. Because they're chunkier, they might not fit in your pastel cabinet. And I found that many pastel cabinets, boxes, and drawers were just not deep enough to hold these, unfortunately. So that can be a con if you get them home and then you don't know where you're going to store them. So something to consider before you purchase them. They do come in very plain, minimalistic cardboard packaging, which is not a con for me, but it might be for you. So I did want to go ahead and mention it. Again, the simple label and the cardboard packaging, not an issue for me, because if he doesn't spend all that money on marketing and packaging, he puts it into the product and he's able to give us a really good quality product for an affordable price. In my opinion, heck yeah, I'd rather have it in plain corrugated cardboard. The labels, however, even though they are simplistic, my last con is I would like to see color names and pigment information on there in the future, and possibly light fast information. Now, the pigments that he uses, he has said that he uses the blue wool scale. All of his pigments are a 7 or an 8 on the blue wool scale, which is very good because it ranges from 0 to 8. However, that doesn't mean they're all a 7 or 8 light fastness, because once you start mixing pigments together, it changes the light fastness considerably. And even if you take something like ultramarine blue, which is absolutely light fast, the more white that you add, even though the titanium white is completely light fast, the less light fast the blue becomes. I don't know 100% why that works that way. I'm not a chemist, but I do know that it's not as simple as it sounds. So I'm not saying that any of the pastels are fugitive or that I'm suspicious of that. I'm just saying that I would really like some light fast information on each pastel in the future if it's possible. It's something that I care about. And that is pretty much it for today's review. Overall, I really love these pastels. The proof is in the pudding. I mean, I absolutely love the painting that I made with it. I thought it came out so fiery, so passionate, so much energy and new life was in that painting. I loved it. I absolutely loved it, and I absolutely loved these pastels. And moreover, I love them so much that after some careful consideration, I decided to spend all my birthday money that I got this year on more of his lovely pastels. Like I said, I have 82 of them here. I ordered a little over 100 more open stock, plus I ordered this set of 25 Thunderstorm Grays, so there'll be update videos coming in the future for sure. And I did want to do a whole video devoted to that Thunderstorm Grays set that should be here tomorrow, actually, so very, very happy news. I do recommend them. I highly recommend these pastels. I mean, there's just really not much more I can say. I absolutely love them. They're a delight to work with. And if you are going to purchase them, if you can afford it, I definitely recommend that workshop set of 50. I think it's the most valuable set that he offers, and the most whole and truly useful and versatile set as well. If you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, don't forget to give me a thumbs up before you go, and subscribe for more videos. Share my videos if you like, and don't forget to leave me some comments down in the comment section down below to let me know what kind of videos you'd like to see next. If you have any questions or about these pastels, also leave them in the comments down below. And as always, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!